let's talk about turbochargers here. What are they and what do they do? How do they do it? How do they make free horsepower? And what's inside a turbocharger? That's what we're going to find out. We're going to take this one apart. Turbochargers are pretty simple, yet genius, all at the same time. There's two sides of a turbocharger. One side compresses the clean air going to the engine, and the other side is attached to the exhaust manifold, and the exhaust gases go through the turbine housing and feed this turbine wheel here and get that spinning super fast. That turbine wheel is connected with a shaft that goes over to the intake side on a compressor wheel, and that's about it. There's the turbine housing on the exhaust side, pumps the exhaust through, and the expanding combustion gases go through this little fan blade there and get that spinning. That fan blade is connected with a shaft over to the intake side here. That's a completely separate sealed side, and that's with the clean air filter intake air. Goes from the air filter through this compressor side, compressor housing and compressor wheel, and then comes out through, and then it goes through the air cooler, the CAC, and to the engine intake. And that's the intake side. And we'll pull this thing apart so you might get a better idea of what I'm talking about here. So there's, yeah, two sides to it, and two fans. That's the compressor wheel, and then that's the turbine wheel. The exhaust side's called the turbine wheel. The intake side is called the compressor wheel because it does just that. It compresses the intake air. This is a variable geometry turbocharger, meaning that it can control the amount of boost that it has via this gear actuated little lever there that controls that swash plate there. We'll get back to that in just a second, but as you can see here, as the one side turns, the other side turns. So as the exhaust gases spin the impeller wheel spins the compressor wheel and compresses the intake air and creates the boost that we install a turbo for. Now let's talk about the exhaust side for a minute. Now, this is a variable geometry turbocharger. Not all turbochargers are variable geometry turbochargers, but this one happens to be, and this is controlled by an electric gear that sits on top of the turbo. It's actually removed right now. So as the exhaust gases go in through there, they'll come out through this little gap there and travel through these little fins, and spin the impeller wheel there. And what controls how much boost you have is that will come in and out, and that controls how much of that actual expanding exhaust gases will make contact with the impeller fan, which controls how fast the impeller fan spins, and in turn how fast the compressor fan spins. So that will control how much boost it's making. Those fins, they don't spin, just the impeller and the compressor wheel spin. Those fins will sit right into those slots there, and they just control how much air makes it to the impeller and spins how fast the impeller spins. And then of course it comes out that side there and through to the exhaust. And that's how you get free horsepower from a turbocharger, because it spins the impeller from the wasted energy, the wasted heat energy from the expanding combustion gases. So that energy would have just been pumped right out of the exhaust pipe, and the turbocharger actually allows you to use it and return it back in as boost, which gives your engine more power. So it's actually pretty genius. You get something out of nothing with this one, which is a pretty hard thing to achieve. So there's what's called a turbo actuator that sits on top of here, and it has an electronically controlled gear that controls where that little little gear there sits and controls how much boost you're getting. And that's controlled by signal from the ECU. And that's what Cummins does, and Volvo does the same thing. Volvo's turbochargers are like the exact same turbocharger, except not painted red. So there's a couple sensors on the turbocharger, nothing major, just like turbo speed sensor and temp sensor usually. And so this is the compressor housing here, and it works kind of pretty much like the exhaust side, but kind of in reverse. And you'll get the clean air from the air filter going in there, and then it'll come right out this little slot here and get compressed by the compressor wheel here to the cold air cooler and to the air intake, feed the engine. And that's about it. Leave a comment if you have any questions that I might have left out, or if you just want to leave a comment that you like the video, or better yet, like the video. Subscribe for more truck stuff.